PodMoth.
Welcome to Freaky Fridays, the podcast where we talk about all kinds of spooky, freaky, scary shit.
We are your hosts, Melissa
and Michelle.
And tonight we are going to be chatting about
The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It. The Conjuring 3, whatever you want to call it. Before we get into that, I've been feeling very like raspy, almost like
raspy,
sexy phlegm voice.
Smelly cat, smelly cat.
We have some special announcements. This will be our final episode of the season, so we can do a little hiatus, a little sun tanning for the summer.
R&R, if you will. It's the final countdown.
But mostly to get our shit together because we are now part of the PodMoth Network.
A podcast network that is all the same kind of genre as us.
Woohoo!
Go us!
Woo us! I'll have to put some like clapping in the background there. So it sounds like we're in front of a live studio audience. And less exciting, but still something that I wanted to announce. We're on YouTube. Yay!
Yay, YouTube.
Wait, okay. Or The Conjuring. The nice thing about it is, say you're at work and you want to stare at a picture of our logo and don't want to use your data on your phone, you can play YouTube.
I mean, why can't they stare at us?
If you look like that and I do some makeup, we can start posting our videos.
Why not? Because sometimes our facial expressions really like...
I also put us on Twitter, but I'm terrible at Twitter. But I was looking up stuff to follow. So I put like podcasts, scary stories, horror, blah, blah, blah. And then I put freaky. Do not fucking look up freaky on Twitter.
I feel like you should have known better than that. Regardless, exciting stuff all around.
Yes, all exciting stuff.
Well, cheers.
Cheers. Chin chin.
Chin chin.
So tonight we're talking about The Conjuring 3, and this is going to be huge spoiler alert. We'll warn you now instead of 5 hours into the podcast.
If you have not seen it and you want to see it, come back and listen after you've seen it.
Pause, go watch it, HBO Max,
and get your ass back,
and then come back and listen and
tell us what you think.
Discuss. Okay. I can't wait to talk about this because I'm interested to see what you say.
Okay.
Did you want to do like an initial, what do you think?
Yeah.
Or, okay. Being a huge fan of the Conjuring series as we are, and a huge fan of the Warrens, what is your initial take on this movie?
Honestly, I have mixed feelings on it. I thought it was well done. I'm confused. And I did enjoy the fact that unlike the other Conjurings, it was more about those two specific people, David and Arne, the little boy and the sister's boyfriend. And it wasn't a lot of seeing strange things in the background or things popping out, or every now and then you'd get a glimpse, but it wasn't all about like weird paranormal stuff. It was more that exorcism, which fascinates me because, again, that goes back to religion, or religion can be scary, but there are some things where I'm very confused on how it happened. But overall, I liked it. How about you?
I agree. Overall, liked it. But I always got to get my butt in there. I really liked how they focused more on Lorraine and her abilities. I liked how, like you said, it was focused around those two kids and a story instead of a bunch of jump scares. There were some parts that were like, no. Yeah. But I do have to say, watching it at home was different than watching it in the movies. Like, I think if we would have went to the movies, we would have been like, oh my God, I was a lot more scared than...
I agree. It felt more of like, kind of like a mind trip to me than anything else. It felt very different than the first two.
Right.
To me.
And I learned that James Wan wasn't the one that he was involved, but he wasn't like the director of this one.
Oh, okay.
Which I think shows. But the first Conjuring, I think I could watch over and over and over.
Me too. And it scared me more. Not that this one didn't creep me out. It just scared me in a different way. It scared me in more of that religious. I did like that they focused more on Lorraine this time. The Warrens were obviously in it a lot more this time, which was really cool to see that dynamic. And you just, I think, learned a little bit more about them, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. I just felt like it was a little bit more dramatized than
for sure
the other ones too. Like they included the true aspects, but I was thinking, if this is true, how have I never heard of this story? And actually, I haven't even heard of, I'm shocked that I don't know this story better. I mean, we all have heard the devil made me do it, or we all use that phrase. I didn't realize that that's what it originated from, this story.
Right. And I didn't realize that either.
The visuals were definitely like, even if this isn't real, this is creepy. Did you know this story before?
I didn't.
So weird, because there was like a made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, I did.
Starring Kevin Bacon and Cloris.
Was there really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know much about it. It surprises me that it hasn't been talked about as much as the Warrens' other...
Right, like Amityville and the parents and All right. Well, let's go through, as we like to do, scene by scene and pick this puppy apart.
Okay.
I liked in the beginning, opened on the house is totally thrashed. It's not one of those Stephen King things where you're like building up the characters and waiting for something to happen. You're like,
starts out with a bang.
Yeah, house is thrashed. Big claw scratches all over the walls and everything.
That was pretty gnarly.
Yeah. Says July 18th, 1981, and David Glatzel, which is the little kid.
I would like just to point out that I was 4 years old.
So I was 5. We see Deborah's boyfriend, Arne, the star of the show. And then a priest pulls up in a taxi, and that was an homage to The Exorcist. It reminded me a lot of
I was going to say it was very Exorcist-esque.
Yes.
Does that sound right? Exorcist-esque?
That's what we should have named our podcast. Exorcist-esque.
Yeah, as soon as he pulled up and got out of that, and you just see that beautiful home, by the way, like that was super cool.
Yeah.
The way it kind of sits there on that property all by itself, when he pulls up and gets out and he has that hat on, I was like, oh, this feels like The Exorcist.
Yeah.
It was cool though.
We heard some loud knocking. The kid, there's a lot going on. Like it was hard for me to get focus this all. Yeah. Because it was so like rapid fire. So the kid hears some loud knocking. He hides in the bathroom, David, the little boy. And that's when the fingers come over the shower. And I was like, oh, we are into it. Like I thought we were into it just seeing the house all locked up. We are into it. That thing is freaky. The blood comes out of the shower.
It started, I'm telling you, it started out with a bang. Like it jumped right into it. There was no, building up. There was no. It just went right into it. And that poor little baby boy is sitting in that bathtub with his cute little freaking bifocal glasses. So cute.
Yeah. So he starts screaming, and basically all hell is breaking loose because we get right into his possession and back-breaking acrobatics. The wind's flying, and they have him on the dining room table, and they're like, we got it. Like that to me was a pretty trippy scene. Like there was some freaky shit in there. Yeah, with him bending backwards, and he was such a cute little boy with his little glasses. Like you just felt for him, and that was a pretty cool scene. Like just his bones popping and crunching backwards, and that creepy giggle he would give, and that was a pretty cool scene. I liked that a lot. Yeah. As it jumps right into these things happening, it had already been established prior to you being introduced to these characters that they already knew he had been possessed and that there was things going on. Like there was we didn't have to mess around with them figuring out like what's wrong with little, David, like what's going on. And like it started out with the priest showing up, the Warrens are there, like they knew what was happening already. And it sounds like it was something that had been going on for quite some time with them. Right. So David's possessed. He's on the table. He's possessed. He's doing the Cirque du Soleil performance. Pretty much.
Freaking Olympics.
Lorraine holds him down and she starts seeing flashes of the pentagram and some like creepy visions. Finally, after attacking Ed, Arne grabs David and says, take me instead. Mm-hmm. Or as I've read in other things, he kind of challenged it like, come on, if you're coming to me, come on, let's do it. You know, like almost wanting to fight him. So it does. So it jumps over to him. And poor Ed has a heart attack. And
which was gnarly, because when you watch that scene and here's this sweet little boy who's possessed, not looking so sweet, and he's like literally on top of him and he's got his hand on his heart and he's like, I'll stop your heart, old man. I was like, fuck,
I know, Jesus.
Like in that little devil voice of his, I was like, damn it. And he's still
we just did that
little bottle glasses.
We just did that creepy kids episode. I was like, that kid's creepy. It made me think, because the demon jumps over to Arne and Ed has a heart attack, and then Ed's in the hospital. I'm like, wait, nobody cares that the devil jumped over to Arne? I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Nobody really saw it except for in the movie, except for Ed. I don't know what happened in real life, but
yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that anyone was actually paying attention. They were so focused on what David was doing and the fact that Ed was having a heart attack. When he says that, nobody's looking
around
at him,
right,
except for Ed is the one saying like, no, don't whatever, don't talk to him, don't talk to it. Ed's the only one saying anything,
right? And they're performing an exorcism, so maybe they thought, oh well, he just twiddled away,
right?
Well,
as one twiddles,
as the devil twiddles. So while Ed's recovering, there's a lot of cutting back and forth, which was hard to take notes on. But
yes, if you have ADHD, you're going to need to take your medication before you watch this movie. And I'm not making fun of anybody with ADHD. No. I have a child with ADHD. I'm just being honest. Even I was caught by the squirrel a few times. Where I was like, what? Wait, what? Okay, reel it back
where am I?
Yeah.
Which was the nice thing about watching it at home, is that you could kind of rewind or pause. Or so Ed's in the hospital.
Rewatch it after you've fallen asleep on the couch because you were at your daughter's 31st.
I was like, oh shit, she's bored out of it.
No, I was asleep.
I believe that's called passed out, Missy. Arne and his girlfriend are together. He asks her to move out of the state, which I kind of was wondering what that was all, what was the point? But they live above a dog kennel, which I love dogs, but seems horrific.
Well, just her boss alone.
Well, yeah, the boss.
He gave me the willies.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was creepy.
Yeah, so he definitely, you kind of wanted Arne to stab him, which comes later. So he goes over to the house and cereal falls, rat runs out, and he sticks his eyeball in the wall hole that looks all like sticky. I'm like, don't touch it. Don't stick your face in there. Don't stick your eyeball in there. And of course he does. So you're dying with anticipation.
I was expecting something to poke his eyeball. Hole.
But he does turn around, and I wrote, dude looks just like him.
Oh my God, that's what Brian said. And I argued with him. I was like, it's a woman. He saw, we rewound that. Are you rewinding technically, even though it's not a video?
You are being kind.
Okay. Brian's like, it's a dude and it's supposed to be him. And I'm like, that is a gnarly looking woman. That is not, first of all, it's not a man, and it certainly doesn't look like him. He's so, yes, it is. And we went back like 5 times, and until later on when we realized it was a woman, and I was like,
told you. Yeah, I totally thought it. Well, it was a very quick glimpse. You got eagle eyes because it was a very quick glimpse.
What I gotta do for work. Have eagle eyes. That was actually my nickname.
Eagle eye.
Eagle eye.
You also caught the in Amityville when the money.
Oh, the jacket.
Yeah, fell out of the jacket. I didn't.
You gotta know that when they pan in or slow down on something, there's a reason why they're focusing on the freaking coffee cup that's sitting there. There's a reason why.
But see, I was focusing in that part. I was focusing on the door. I was like, who's gonna come through there? What's it gonna
James Brolin.
Look. Yeah, I was waiting for his hair. Beautiful.
See if he was gonna go to the wedding in his tidy whities and gray thermal.
Were they black tidy whities?
Yeah, right.
Tidy blackies?
Black tidy whities.
Nice. a good one. You should
get the Chippendale bow tie on.
Patent them. Okay, so
we were in the hallway with the.
Oh yeah, he looks in the hole and turns around, and she just scares him, right?
Yeah, she's literally there for a second.
So we're back at the hospital, and Lorraine is telling the priest the story of how they met, and I was like, this is sweet and all, but what the fuck are we talking about this for?
Yeah.
Let's get back to the devil. So then we cut to Arne looking a little sickly.
A little?
Looking not too hot. Strapped to a tree with a chainsaw that he is pulling up by a...
Which, by the way...
Is this as part of the script, or is this stuff that really happened in the 80s, which I could believe either?
Well, I mean, that is how they cut down branches and trees. Very safely harnessed now is how they do it. Yeah. Even when they first showed it, that was Brian's first thing. That is not safe. That is not how they do that. And I'm like, well, this was the 80s, though.
Yeah. 80s, anything went.
He literally had what was like, looked like one of those leather belt things that you strap around when you got a bad back, or like he won the wrestling title.
You just said that was a horrible wrestling belt. But yeah, you just had to like anchor yourself against the tree with science.
And no hard hat on, no net below him, no.
Yeah.
People are walking around. This dude's got a chainsaw up above you, and people are just prancing around below him like nothing's gonna happen.
And you're not feeling good. Like maybe call in sick.
Shouldn't be in charge of the power tool today.
Yeah, and if it's not starting up, let's get down off of that tree. But no, he sees that dude woman in the window behind him and drops the chainsaw, and all that guy says is Arne. I'd be like,
I would have been like, motherfucker, get your ass down here so I can beat you.
Yeah.
I honestly expected when that chainsaw falls, I was like, oh God, it's going to be a bloodbath. Like, I expected it to like take his hand off on the way down, get someone below him, or like fiddle out, like jump around on the lawn and get like, I just expected way more than just, dude, Arne or whatever, you know, like that's it.
We're used to that.
That's all that happens.
The gory.
And also, really quickly, I have to say that the dude chick, she reminds me with her outfit and her hair and her very stoic look. She reminds me of those like old timey silhouette cutout things.
Yeah,
like she looks like a walking
silhouette,
a walking cutout silhouette. That's what she reminds me of. Like she should have a mirror in her hand and like.
She just reminded me of a librarian, very school marm.
Yeah.
But I like the silhouette idea more. So Arnie's obviously not feeling well, looking like shit. He drives home, gets to that kennel apartment, and the Bruno kennel owner guy, he is like forcing Arne to drink.
Was this not a weird scene to you?
Yeah, it was very like all the leaves are brown, like 70s.
And he was like wanting to dance up close to Arne, and he's like, take one, or your chick's gonna think I'm a drunk or whatever. Well, dude, you fucking are. I don't know, it was weird.
Very weird. And in true ADD fashion, it cuts back to Ed in the hospital, and he wakes up and immediately says, Arnie's possessed. Which I loved. It wasn't like, hi, Lorraine, how long was I out? He's like, call him. Arnie's possessed. So Lorraine calls the cops. Arne starts seeing shit, which was very trippy. Red scenes, and sees Bruno fondling Debbie, his girlfriend, and being like all crazy. And then he thinks that Bruno is attacking him, and he ends up stabbing him with a pocket knife.
22 times.
In the chest. So then we see Arne walking down the road, and the cop pulls over, and he turns around and he's covered in blood and says, I think I heard somebody. It's still, even though I'd seen it, it still was just creepy. A great scene. Yeah.
Because it's in that true fashion of all of a sudden they don't know what they did, but they're covered in blood, and you're like, okay, are they playing dumb, or do they really not know what just happened? It's sort of like that emoji that
IDK.
I don't know.
I also heard that Arne was like super sweet. Like I think Ed Warren said Arne was just like the nicest guy. So I think him walking down the road and covered in blood and like, I think I hurt somebody was very like
believable, probably.
Yeah, like I'm too nice to have done this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the cop takes him to jail. The Warrens are immediately there trying to invoke the spirit or I should say, instigate the demon, and he doesn't respond at all, which is it's very different than all of the other instances. So,
right,
nothing's pissing off this devil.
Right, and he's able to read from the Bible.
Yeah.
Which is not normal if you're possessed or whatever.
Right. And the cross didn't piss him off. And the girlfriend, Debbie, was just like, this isn't him. I was there, totally sticking up for him. But he tries to get a lawyer, and they're trying to convince the lawyer that
the devil made him do it.
Yeah, the devil made him. And she's like, I just don't think it's going to work. And I don't really know if I believe in this stuff. And then they say, well, why don't you come on over to our house?
Yeah. Next thing you know, they're back in court, and she's got this look on her face like, fucking the devil did it. The devil made him do it.
Yes, I believe. One thing that I like that Ed Warren says to the lawyer is the court accepts the existence of God. It's about time they accept the existence of the devil.
I agree with that.
So she pleads for Arne demonic possession, which everybody's like, what the fuck? And then we find out immediately he's going to get the death penalty.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's happening, people.
Yeah, she talks to some like lawyer friend or whatever she has and says that they're pushing for the death penalty. So, sorry. So the Warrens are trying to research, and then they say, let's start at the beginning. Jump 5 months earlier, and that's when we see the family moving into the house. That's when we get into the waterbed.
The waterbed. Which, can we talk about waterbeds for a second? You know what's so funny is that and we were watching it, I asked Brian, I'm like, have you ever slept on a waterbed? And he goes, yeah. And I'm thinking, I think most people our age or older have slept on a waterbed.
Oh, yeah.
Never did I once ever get into my head that there could have been something inside there. Like, I never, as much as I like scary stuff, I never thought about it. And when he's laying there and you see, it almost reminded me of Jaws. When you see that face float up to the surface,
yes.
It was like, and he jumps, it was like, holy fuck. Like, it reminds me of Jaws when they're in the aquarium and they see the body parts floating up, you know, in the tank or whatever. And it was like, that's what that reminded me of. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought about that.
But when he falls back and like plops on the bed, I told Nick, I've done that and it fucking hurts.
It does hurt. It is, even though there's water in there, it is not comfortable.
No, it's like doing a belly flop, but on top of rubber. It's,
Yeah,
I hate waterbeds.
Yeah, they're miserable.
I was like, maybe that's why we all have back problems now.
Probably.
Well, luckily we don't have to worry about it because I don't think they make them anymore, and they're banned by a lot of rentals. I think like the last 4 places we've rented, they're like, no water beds. I'm like, no problem. Who has a water bed?
I wonder if anyone still has one, like actually sleeps on it.
Like Quagmire from Family Guy. Like, giggity, giggity, get on my water bed. Yeah, the kid flops back onto it. He starts feeling something. He sees that creepy ass face. The hand shoots through, grabs his arm.
Water's going everywhere.
Water's everywhere.
It's like being pulled in.
So they say there's water damaged wood, but when they look at it, they say that's not water damage.
No.
But I like that they were like, there's some funky like thing going on with the wood. Let's just put a rug over it.
Yeah. There's this smelly, slimy, weird, crusty substance. We're going to pretend it's water damage and throw a big ugly rug over it.
Sounds
good. How we solved these problems in the 80s.
So the daughter, Debbie, is walking him through the house with this whole water damage thing. And they go to the outside to access the basement. And she opens that cellar type door, and the fucking cobwebs are like unbelievable. And badass Lorraine says, fuck it in my skirt and pretty shirt. I'm going to crawl under the house.
I love when Ed says to her, but you're going to get your skirt dirty. And she just looks at him like, really, motherfucker?
Yeah.
Do you know what I've been through?
Yeah,
my
you lucky.
Skirt's going to get dirty.
Lucky you had a heart attack.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and get my skirt dirty.
There's no fucking way I'd climb under there.
Not to mention the shit that she's seen is probably worse than getting her skirt dirty.
Yes.
But that thing opening with those cobwebs, I'd been like, nope.
Oh, an exterminator down here.
Yeah. Then she gets under there.
But here's what I thought was funny. When she's crawling, she sees the one rat and screams.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, are you okay? And she's like, it's a rat or whatever. Yeah. And then she opens up the thing and there's a gazillion rats and she doesn't make a sound.
Right.
That's what would have made me scream. I would have been like, peace out. I'm turning around and heading back.
That's so true. Yeah. Yeah. So this is when we first see the demonic witch's totem. I can't even tell you what this thing is made out of. Teeth and horns and sticks.
It's hard to really like figure out what it is made out of and what it's actually supposed to look like. And it's just all kinds of weird shit thrown together.
Very, very creepy.
It almost reminded me of a gremlin.
A gremlin with no skin.
Yeah.
So through finding this witch's totem, they find out that David was cursed.
Not possessed.
Right.
Cursed, which is two different things.
Right. So they're back at the house and...
The other priest is the one that tells them that ex-priest Kastner would know.
Yeah. So go see Father Kastner?
Kastner?
At
first I thought they were calling him Father Cancer. It's
Me too!
Yeah. And like, that's an unfortunate name.
Yeah.
It's Kastner.
Kastner. Okay. So they pull up to his property, which is amazing.
He has one of the best lines by far in the entire movie. Would you like an omelet? As he's sitting there holding these fresh eggs and they kind of giggle and they're like, we had breakfast before. Like, who says that to someone else that you just met? And then he goes to shake his hand and he's like, I've got chicken shit on my hands. Oh my God. Okay.
So he looks at the picture of that weird totem thing. And they start talking about that ram cult, the disciples of the ram. So the Warrens are asking why would someone target the family? And the father basically says, why not?
Pretty much is what
all they need are 3 specific kind of people. And so, sorry, sucks for you. And then he says, hey, follow me down this hall.
Yeah. And into this dark basement down the stairs where the door's locked.
And Lorraine's like, nope. But they still go, and then he has his own fun little demon room collection like the Warrens do.
His was a bit intense.
It was not full of toys that are possessed. It was full of some creepy, occult-looking crazy shit.
Yeah, his was way different.
Yeah, the Warrens is like a...
museum, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I always want to use that word dichotomy. I don't know if I'm using that right, but it's always that like... It's almost like a yin and yang. It's like... fun toys, but they're possessed. So it's
okay.
You see something, you're like, oh, cute. That's possessed. Oh, shit.
Like a child.
Yeah, exactly. Like a creepy kid. His was just straight evil, creepy, demonic looking shit.
Yeah.
So that's when he tells, although hard to understand, the lovely story about the disciples of the Ram cult. So for our listeners, do you have a freaky story you want to share?
If so, go to our website at freakyfridayspodcast.com, where you can email us or find us on Instagram at freakyfridayspod. He kind of reminds me of the uncle in the Burbs. The one with that just sits there and stares or whatever.
My brother.
Yeah. The doctor.
Okay, so after they visit Father Kastner, we cut to Arne in jail cleaning and mopping with a bucket. We get a little scare in a little dark corner there, which again, I was waiting for something to happen and the anticipation got me. And that old guy that sits up in bed and starts talking the Blondie lyrics, that was probably one of the creepiest parts of the movie for me.
Yeah, he played that part really well.
Yeah, and just the way he said the words, when you're not singing it, you're speaking it and in that tone. Oh man.
He reminded me of the old dude in Poltergeist. And I think it's maybe the second or third Poltergeist.
Oh, you're all gonna die.
That's who he reminded me, like his facial expression.
I thought he looked like Iggy Pop.
Oh, he for sure looks like Iggy Pop. But just the way he was speaking those lyrics and the way he sat there like that, he reminded me of that
dead-eye stare. Yeah. So cutting again, we're back at the Warrens' house and they get some flowers. And she said, "Oh, the parents sent us flowers." I like how
I loved that.
They tied that together.
But then I was thinking, what they did for your family, and the best you could do was send them a bouquet of flowers.
Show me the money.
Well, I'm a little confused, but nice sentiment at the very least.
Yeah, maybe it's monthly. They're like, hey, by the way, thanks for getting rid of that devil. They get a call from Drew, their buddy, their little worker bee. I like him.
Yeah.
He says that there is a match of the picture of the totem from a cop in Massachusetts. So the Warrens just like hop in the car and just drive everywhere. They go to the cops station and they're going back and forth with, I need this to help my case. I need this to help my case. And Lorraine says, well, what if we help you find the girl? I love the cop test with the knives. He brings out the knives and Ed's like, no, we're not doing this. She's not some circus freak. Yeah.
She's like, it's
this one. Let's just get on with it. And then David and Deborah go and see Arne while all that's happening at the station. Arnie's still not looking good. And David's like, he was so cute. I know how you feel.
Like he noticed when she touched Arne, David, it's almost like David noticed that he was cold, like he could tell. And it was almost like he was bringing it up to like make Arne feel better, which I thought was so sweet.
Consoling him.
Yeah, and it was just so, like I felt my heart just went out to him in that scene because he's just so stinking cute. And it was like the fact that he's trying to console the adult now for what he's been through, it was just so sweet, I thought.
Yeah, it was cute. So the Warrens travel to the woods with the cop trying to find this missing girl. So Lorraine goes into her trance and connects with the earth and sees the girls, and that whole reenactment with the stabbing and just the back and forth with the visions, and that was pretty trippy. And then her running and almost falling off that cliff, but then the creepy hand comes and like grabs her leg and pulls her. So after the cop sees that Lorraine is legit, he's like, send you the file in the morning on the girl. And then Deborah calls the Warrens. I've been trying to get a hold of you all day, but apparently you've been in the woods, falling off cliffs. Arne is not doing well, and they say to put him on suicide watch. And they tell the chaplain to go in there and help him, but all he does is give him a glass bottle of fucking holy water.
Which I told Brian, I'm like, that makes no sense, because if someone's on a suicide watch, there is absolutely no visitors, not even priests. Like there's nothing, and they certainly wouldn't let you
have
anything to be able to give.
And then how does he know to put like a circle around him?
Well, when Arnie's doing that, you can hear him talking to somebody. So it's like he's responding. We don't see her, but Arnie's responding, and he's doing what she's telling him to do. Because every now and then he'll say a couple of words, and you can see he's responding to something. So that's how he knew what to do, is because she's in his head. And that's when Debbie, the girlfriend, calls the Warrens and says that whatever that witch's name is, she's contacted him. She's telling him to kill himself. And that's when they're like, call the whatever, tell him to put him on 24-hour watch, blah, blah, blah. So it's that chick. Does she even have a name? Like, I'm still trying to.
So what's funny is
I don't remember.
I watched some YouTube about the movie, and they kept calling her Lola. But at the very end, when we see the photo album that the priest shows to Lorraine, her name is Isla, or Isla, Isla. It says that written under her picture. So I was assuming that was her name.
Yeah. So anyhow.
Yeah, he makes the circle around, but the demon is summoned by the occultist. I wrote down, it's a curse. Curses can be broken.
That's what Lorraine says when they're back at the hotel talking about what she found out and how he's not possessed, he's cursed.
So Lorraine tells Ed about her vision. So they break into that funeral home because they
that was nuts.
Don't say, but apparently they need to touch the dead girl's body to be able to find out what happened. So
Lorraine does,
Lorraine, Ed's like, I ain't touching that shit. So they find the body, Lorraine touches it, she starts to get the vision. So after Lorraine like senses the connection and she's in the vision and she's going like through that tunnel, sees the upside down cross, she sees the ritual. That's when I discovered this dude was a woman, and she basically saves Arne from cutting himself after he smashes that glass of the holy water while on suicide watch.
But he does cut himself.
But he was gonna slit his wrist.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he still ends up cutting Because they even say later when they say, how's Arnie? And that Drew kid says, he's good. They've stitched him up.
I missed that part. So Lorraine's able to save him from complete harm by basically screaming at her through this vision. Mm-hmm. It's all very kind of confusing. Like, I feel like I have to watch it again just to kind of get, and it seems like every scene has like a specific meaning or a tie to something, or like you really have to pay attention in this movie.
Well, that, and I'm confused when they're at the morgue, because where did that big blobby guy become the connection? Who is he? I'm confused on who that is.
I think he was one of the dead bodies on the
table,
on the table. In the morgue. Yeah, in the morgue, or yeah.
But how did he become the connection? That's why I'm confused.
I was thinking that the occultist chick was
made him the connection,
making him attack Ed and Lorraine. Yeah, and then Ed saves Lorraine.
Right. Because as soon as she drops her hand, he falls and hits his head.
Yeah, gross. When she takes her hand off of the dead body, she like curls up into Ed, and I was like, oh, wash your hand. You've just been touching a dead body. So now we're back at the Warrens' house, and this is when Drew finds this book, and he said, my Latin's a little rusty, but they figure out that they need to break the altar to break the curse. The altar that the curse was concocted on. This is when, this is another part that it was just like a whirlwind, but Ed starts kind of having this vision, and he sees the big blobby guy again, and he goes to like attack him, and Drew grabs him, and he's like, no, and it's actually Lorraine.
And they say it's because the totem was in the house, right? Didn't they find a totem in the house?
Well, somewhere? Yeah, we find it later.
Right, but and that's what caused Ed to...
These, like, visions to come to life. And, yeah,
it's just, but it's very confusing because they don't explain how that works. I get that they know, but as people watching, I want to understand how this totem is possessing people or cursing people. Like, it just made no sense.
Is it like a Wi-Fi extender? Like, you just put it somewhere and then you can teleport over there, and that would be helpful to know. So you're right. Right after he almost stabs Lorraine, they start looking for that totem, and they said, where those flowers fucking come from? Somebody delivered them. He looks inside, breaks. It's that goat tooth sticky thing, or the naked gremlin, as you like to. Lorraine says, I'm going to get this book translated because Drew, you're not freaking good enough. I didn't know that meant she was going to go to the creepy priest guy. Yeah. But Ed and Drew discover that the girl that went missing moved to Fairfield to go to college, and that was kind of their connection, which still wasn't like a strong connection to me, but so they're going through Lorraine's vision, and they're thinking water and the train, and they said the lady is by a river, and the next scene is Lorraine pulling up to the father that lives over there by the river. Ed rushes out. He's going to go save Lorraine, and once again forgets his pills for his heart. So the priest says, he explains to Lorraine that they need certain people to complete this curse, and funny enough, it comes in threes, right? They need a child, a purist, and somebody close to God. This is where I was starting to think, Johnny come lately over here. I'm like, do we trust this guy? Well, the next thing we know, we're back down in the basement. Well, Lorraine goes down there because the guy like disappears and flips on the light, and he's just sitting there like a creeper. And this is when he shows Lorraine that album, and you figure out that the occultist lady is his child.
Right.
And he tells the whole big elaborate story.
But still, when I said in the beginning that I was confused, even when he told this story, I was still confused on how she became this occultist and was cursed and could, like, I didn't understand anything of that.
And I'm horrible with accents, so if somebody has an accent, I just struggle to be able to understand. But what I got from it was that he was trying to get to the bottom of that whole Disciples of the Ram cult story. And he became kind of engrossed in it. And that's where he got his collection of all these artifacts, bringing up this child that he I don't know where she came from.
Well, he says that her mother, he doesn't really say if they were whatever, because I mean, he was a priest, so
you're supposed to have one. So maybe he wasn't
she dies
even supposed,
at childbirth.
Right.
The mom dies at childbirth.
And then he said raising this daughter, she got a little bit too into his artifacts of the occult. So it's kind of like how the Warrens keep their daughter out of that.
Sure. But I'm also like really in true crime and stuff. It doesn't turn me into automatically to a serial killer. Like I want to know more on their reasoning or thoughts. Was she alive? Was she dead? Was she like, what is she?
She looks dead.
I mean, that's what I thought, but it was just, there wasn't enough explanation on certain things.
Definitely not. He says the altar must be in the tunnels under the house, and opens the door and pushes Lorraine into these secret passageway when the occultist lady comes back in the house. And I'm like, you never went down there? Like, this is a huge, it's not like you go down some stairs and there's another room. Like, there's this whole network of tunnels underneath this guy's house.
Oh, and you think he didn't know about it?
Well, yeah, he never went fucking down there?
I'm sure he did. I think that's why he knew to push her in there.
I thought he was just hiding her from the lady that came home.
I think he wanted us to think he was hiding her. And he wanted Lorraine to think he was helping hide her. But I think he was like pushing her out there, like, because obviously the occultist is going to know where to find her. And
true.
You know, like, that's how I looked at it.
And the next thing you know, the occultist just slits his throat.
That was gnarly.
Which, yeah, I was a little shocked about that. I thought there was going to be at least some exchange of words.
Yeah, that was a little...
Or you'll never catch me, or something.
And it's almost like he knew it was going to happen, though, too.
Yeah, like he resigned to, I'm done.
Because it almost, if I remember correctly when I was watching it, it almost looked like he kind of like tilted his head a little bit for her. Like, here you go. Like,
yeah, I give up.
Here you go. Or
well, he finally had confessed to somebody. He confessed to Lorraine. So yeah, I guess he was probably done. So Lorraine sees what's happening when she does that. She starts running through the tunnel, hears the water, finds the altar. She tries pushing the altar over, which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
And then this lady is coming, and it's so intense. Then Ed pulls up, and luckily the altar is right underneath an open grate on the in the driveway. So he starts yelling for Lorraine. Lorraine hears him and says, "Over here!" And he gets down there. So she's starting to run away from the occultist now. And when she falls and she sees herself, because the occultist is like taking on her, almost like a shapeshifter, that was trippy.
Yeah.
So she's like seeing herself get up and trip out. And so, I mean, I think Lorraine probably already mentioned this. Maybe my note is late here, but it's kind of like the occultist is a Satanist with the same power that Lorraine has as like a good person. So it's really that good against evil with the same powers. Mm-hmm. It's like a Marvel comic at this point. And then when Ed thinks that he sees Lorraine running towards, and it turns into the occultist, and she blows that shit in his eyes, which I have no idea what it is. I thought it was just dirt. And then all of a sudden he's like blind and possessed.
Yeah. It's like a poison or whatever.
We cut over to Arne, and he's fully possessed, and he's doing the back-breaking breakdance.
Yeah.
And then Ed's going batshit. It just, another all hell breaks loose. Arnie's trying to slit his throat with a smashed window piece. And so finally we learn that love conquers all. And Lorraine and Ed, well, Lorraine actually gets Ed to come back out of the possession, and he smashes the altar. The occultist is still there, but Ed reminds the demon that she didn't do her job and he needs to take a soul, and she just crumples up like a piece of paper. Ed's heart starts acting up. He needs his pills. And not only has Lorraine used her psychic ability, crawled through cobwebs and rats in her skirt, reenacted murders for a cop solving a crime, she also has his medication in her necklace.
Which I think is just the cutest thing ever.
What a good wife. Nick was probably like, my wife don't fucking do that.
She's like Superwoman.
Actually, Nick probably did think that, because when I used to carry a purse, I would never want to carry anything of his in my purse. I'm like, no, you get your own fucking purse.
Yeah, I thought that was actually really sweet. And
yeah,
you kind of knew it was going to happen, because when he leaves originally and they show his pill bottle sitting there, it's like, obviously something's going to happen, or they wouldn't show the pill bottle. And she comes to and has the medication because she listened and she paid attention.
So after all that, it's a very happy ending, very Disney ending. We're back at the Warrens, in the museum of horror that they have. They add the bowl from the altar on there. Arne goes to trial and he's convicted of manslaughter, and he serves 5 years, which seems like a very low amount of time, but I guess he was a model prisoner.
He and Debbie got
married while he was in prison, and they're still married to this day.
Yeah.
Ed surprises Lorraine with a friggin' gazebo.
Which was so cute.
Yeah.
But you know why, though, right?
Because of their first date.
Yeah.
At which they flash back on, which was the whole story that she was telling to the priest in the hospital, where I was like, why are we talking about this?
Yeah.
Let's get back to them demons. And then at the very end, I think my favorite part was when they played the actual recording. Did you watch it all the way through? They played the actual recording of David being possessed, and showed pictures of the real Arne, the real Debbie,
which looked nothing like Arne on here.
No. I won't be mean, but no.
Even though with the other ones, there was a lot more of the paranormal stuff that happened. And this one felt like basically straightforward. He's possessed and we find out he's cursed and whatever.
You already know this story. We're going to pick it up from here. I'm like, wait, I didn't know any of this.
It still is a pretty gnarly story when you watch it and you think about like all the shit that poor little boy went through and that family went through, and then it passes on. So I'm just really surprised that they haven't talked about that one more, especially because they say like this was the case for the Warrens, that like it really showcases, I think, more of what they were capable of, especially Lorraine. Than
I did hear a lot of controversy
about this one.
Some YouTubes that I watched. Apparently, there was another brother that wasn't portrayed in the movie, but he said, maybe, but he said that like it was all bullshit, and he said that the Warrens just did this for money, and then he moved out of Connecticut. But who knows? I don't know. It's interesting. It's weird. He also like tried to sue the author of the book, which is the same one that did that demonologist book, and the Warrens, and the case was dismissed. I don't know. I just don't know if it was the controversy or the time. Like the 80s was that satanic panic time. Like maybe it just was overshadowed with all the heavy metal music that was coming out.
Those damn heavy metal songs. Devil made him do it.
Ozzy tearing bats' heads off.
Well, it's no different than like with the Amityville stuff. And I'm sure it was for shock value of doing the movies and stuff. Like they kind of played it up a little bit. Obviously, there was no bleeding walls and, things like that. But there were several things that did happen that are paranormal or whatever you want to call it. So I wonder if it almost seems like in any case that they have, someone's kind of negating like that it happened. And it makes you wonder like, okay, is it a family member who just wasn't around for it and they're pissed off that they're not part of it now? And so they want to be like, no, it's not real. Like,
or they didn't get the fame out of it. Are they jealous? Like, who knows? And I guess the boy, David, never came out and said anything. But obviously, Arne believes it. Debbie believes it. The parents were in there. And apparently there was like 6 priests that were involved.
I think if that's something if that happened to me personally, I don't know that I would want to talk about it, because look at how we are as the people who watch this, right? Like as the spectators, and we watch it and we're like, oh my God. And you're like, you get obsessed with it and you want to know more and blah, blah, blah. Think about how you would feel if you were poor little David. And like people already judge people for the smallest of things.
Very true.
I couldn't imagine going through something like that and someone either saying, no, this didn't happen to you, or looking at you like you're some freak of nature or a, you know, a science project or whatever. Like, I probably wouldn't really want to get involved in it too much either. I would just be like, yes, this happened, and I would just want to move on from my life is why I would think people don't want to talk about it. Because look at what they go through for however long, months, years, whatever, dealing with the shit that they do. They probably just don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah.
They just want to move on with their life.
It's like a divorce. I don't want to talk about it. I did hear on some of the YouTubes that I watched that David actually had a learning disability, or some mental incapabilities or something, to where maybe that's why he doesn't talk about it. Yeah. So maybe he just doesn't know how to express it or explain it, or right. But I think more than anything, who would want to talk about my demon possession? Yeah, like nobody wants to relive that. Or he doesn't remember. Right. I mean, how do you know if you experienced it or not? It's like trying to remember a dream, probably. Yeah. I definitely could watch it again and try and connect more dots. It's just, there's so much, especially with the jumping back and forth, there's so much to look at. Maybe that's why they do it, so we'll watch it again. It was definitely one of the more fast-paced Conjurings. Not even just Conjuring, but any of the things that have to do with Lorraine and Ed Warren. Like, it was definitely more fast-paced, and we established that in the beginning when it just starts off with a bang. There's no building up. It's already, they're knee-deep into this possession or curse or whatever. And so I feel like I need to watch it again just to like really focus. Now that I know what I need to focus on, like, I think I need to go back and watch it again just to see. I think it's worth going back and watching again. But again, because it's with the Warrens and based on a true story, that gets me every time. I'll watch anything with them. And obviously not all of it was real, but the parts that were real were still pretty trippy. There is a lot of information out there. Now that this movie has come out, it feels like even more information is being thrown out there. Like the podcast I was listening to today, it was called Tales by Cole. He talked about how it was actually Arne and Debbie going to look at a rental property, and while they were looking around, they brought David, and David was actually 11 at the time, and he was walking through the property, and he came back and he was upset and said that an old man got in his face and was being very mean to him and pushed him down. And ever since that happened is when he started having this kind of possession and demonic air about him. Interesting. So a little bit different, but still same premise. Yeah. Very interesting. Well, all right. We're going to go on summer hiatus, and you and I will be back in time for the fall. Woohoo! Our favorite time of year. Spooky season. Love it. Well, thanks everyone for hanging in there with us as we navigate this podcast journey of spookiness. Spooky tale. We will do our best to deliver next season. Well, until next time, sleep tight. Make sure to keep the lights on. And cut. That's a wrap. Don't forget to go to FreakyFridaysPodcast.com and subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast listening platform. Join us next week for a new freaky tale.